I thought I'd introduce to you a relatively new area of leadership and talk about how it's related to some areas of leadership that you're reading about in this chapter. I want to talk about the concept of temporal leadership. Okay, temporal means time. And so temporal leadership is the process of managing multiple time frames, synchronizing the contributions of members, and coordinating work so that goals are achieved. And I think this is a fascinating concept. And again, you might question whether this is management or whether this is leadership, but the people writing about this do put it under the category of leadership, and they do relate it to some of the existing leadership theories that we're talking about. And one has to do with the leadership behaviors. As you recall, there's two main kinds of leadership behaviors according to what was found in the Ohio State and the Michigan studies. One is more of a task-oriented leadership, and the other is a more relationship-oriented leadership. And you see those leadership styles used in many different leadership theories, whether it's Fiedler's contingency theory or Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory. You see relationship-oriented and task-oriented leadership styles. And you also see that in temporal leadership. So what does task-oriented temporal leadership look like? It looks like structuring time, coordinating, managing the pace of work. Okay, so those task-oriented aspects. What about relationship-oriented? It has to do with recognizing achievements in terms of achievements of meeting deadlines, mediating when there is conflict over time and time-related issues, and seeking contributions from team members about decisions about timing. So I think it's interesting that, again, we see another example of task versus relationship-oriented leadership being used. Another area that I think is we see in previous leadership theories has to do with the fact that the style of leadership that a leader takes may depend upon the member that they're interacting with. And this is something we saw in leader-member exchange theory, is that leaders have different types of relationships with different followers. And again, I think one of the main lessons out of that is that leaders have to tailor their relationships to different followers to bring everybody into that in-group. And so there is some recognition of that in terms of temporal leadership, mainly from the fact that they recognize that there are individual differences in how people relate to time. Some people have different styles in terms of urgency related to time. Some people are more focused on speed, and other people are more focused on accuracy. And so knowing about your followers may help you to manage them and lead them in terms of timing. There's also differences that people have in terms of their pacing style. Some people like to do things all at once. Others like to distribute it over time. And then there's finally, some people have more of a future orientation and some people have more of a present orientation. And so the lesson here is that, again, the leader should know the followers and how they relate to time and manage people in accordance to what their pre-inclination is in terms of time. So I'll just wrap it up in terms of, how do we know if someone is a good temporal leader? Do you know if you are a good temporal leader? Well, here's some questions to ask yourself. To what extent do you remind team members of important deadlines? Do you prioritize tasks and allocate time for each task? Do you prepare and build in time for contingencies, problems, emerging issues? What extent do you pace a team so that work is finished on time? To what extent do you set milestones and measure progress on the project? And are you effective in coordinating a team to meet deadlines? Those are questions that you can ask yourself to determine whether you're an effective temporal leader, and areas that you might want to improve on in terms of temporal leadership.